Commander Jake Harrison stood in the bridge of the exploration ship New Frontier, staring at the holographic display that showed their position in space. Something was wrong, very wrong. The star charts that had guided human ships for 300 years suddenly ended in darkness 50 light-years from Earth. Beyond that invisible line there was nothing. No stars, no planets, no space dust, just empty black void. "This can't be right," Jake muttered, running his hand through his graying hair. He had been exploring space for 20 years, and he had never seen anything like this. The computer systems showed perfect readings everywhere else, but when they tried to map what lay beyond that boundary, everything went dark. Dr. Lisa Martinez walked up beside him, her tablet in hand. She was the ship's expert on alien artifacts and ancient civilizations. "Commander, I've been studying the data from our long-range sensors. This isn't a natural phenomenon. Something is actively blocking our ability to see what's out there." Jake turned to look at her. Lisa was young, maybe 30, with short brown hair and intelligent eyes that always seemed to be analyzing something. "What do you mean by actively blocking?" "I mean something is deliberately hiding whatever exists beyond that boundary. Our sensors work fine until they hit that exact distance, then they just stop working. It's like running into an invisible wall." Lieutenant Commander Ryan Webb, the ship's weapons and defense officer, joined them at the display. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and a serious expression. "Sir, I've been monitoring our systems as we approach the boundary. Every time we get within 5 light-years of that line, our long-range sensors start malfunctioning. Navigation goes crazy. Even our communication systems start having problems." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Show me the reports from the other ships." Ryan pulled up data on his screen. The Colonial Survey Fleet sent 12 ships to investigate the boundary last month. Every single one of them reported the same thing. As soon as they got close, their systems started failing. 3 ships had to make emergency returns to base when their engines stopped working properly. Lisa looked at the data with growing concern. "Commander, I think we need to consider the possibility that this boundary isn't natural. I've been studying alien artifacts found throughout human space, and many of them point to the same thing. They suggest that Earth and all our colonies exist inside some kind of artificial bubble." "A bubble?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir. Like we're living inside a snow globe, and someone is preventing us from seeing what's outside." The bridge fell silent as the crew processed this information. The idea that humanity might be trapped or contained was terrifying. Jake had always believed that humans were free to explore the galaxy, to spread across the stars and build new worlds. The thought that they might be prisoners in their own corner of space was hard to accept. "Dr. Martinez, what kind of technology would be needed to create something like this?" Jake asked. Lisa shook her head. "Far beyond anything we have, sir. We're talking about the ability to manipulate space itself across dozens of light years. Whatever civilization built this boundary is incredibly advanced." Ryan checked his instruments again. "Sir, we're receiving a priority message from Fleet Command. Admiral Kane wants all exploration ships to return to base immediately. She's calling for an emergency meeting." Jake nodded. "Set course for home, Mr. Webb. Best possible speed." As the New Frontier turned away from the mysterious boundary, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that everything they thought they knew about their place in the universe was about to change. For 3 centuries, humans had believed they were alone in the galaxy, slowly expanding outward from Earth to build colonies on distant worlds. They had never encountered other intelligent life, never found evidence of advanced civilizations, but now it seemed possible that they had been alone, not because the galaxy was empty, but because someone had made sure they couldn't see what was really out there. Dr. Martinez spent the journey back to Earth studying every piece of data they had collected. She found patterns in the alien artifacts that suggested the boundary had been in place for thousands of years, maybe longer. The artifacts seemed to be warning markers, telling anyone who found them that they were approaching the edge of known space. "Commander," she said during their final approach to Earth, "I think whoever built this boundary has been watching us the whole time. These artifacts aren't random. They're placed specifically where human explorers would find them, like someone wanted us to discover them when we were ready. Jake looked out at the stars surrounding Earth, stars that had seemed so infinite just days ago. Now they felt like the walls of a prison cell. Dr. Martinez, in your professional opinion, why would someone want to keep us contained? Lisa was quiet for a long moment. There are two possibilities, sir. Either they're protecting us from something dangerous out there, or they're protecting the galaxy from us. The New Frontier docked at Luna Station 3 days later. Jake watched through the viewport as other exploration ships arrived, their crews carrying the same confused and worried expressions. Whatever was happening at the edges of human space, it was bigger than any of them had imagined. As they prepared to meet with Admiral Kane, Jake realized that humanity was about to learn they weren't alone in the universe. The question was whether that discovery would bring freedom or danger. Either way, the maps that had guided them for centuries were about to be rewritten completely. Admiral Patricia Kane stood before the largest gathering of ship commanders in human history. The massive briefing room at Fleet Command was packed with captains, scientists, and military officers from across the colonies. Everyone looked tense and worried. The news about the boundary had spread quickly through the fleet, and nobody knew what it meant. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Kane began, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent 40 years in space, "we are facing something unprecedented. Every single exploration mission to the outer edges of our territory has encountered the same phenomenon. Our maps end in darkness, and something is preventing us from seeing what lies beyond." Dr. Kevin Sullivan, a thin man with messy gray hair and thick glasses, stood up from his seat near the front. He was the fleet's top expert on space physics and had been studying the boundary data for weeks. "Admiral, I believe I know what we're dealing with. The boundary isn't just hiding stars from us. It's bending space-time itself to create an artificial void in our sensors." "Explain that in simple terms, Doctor," Admiral Kane said. "Think of it like this," Kevin said, adjusting his glasses. "Imagine you're looking at a photograph, but someone has painted over part of it with black paint. The picture is still there underneath, but you can't see it. That's what's happening to space around us. Something is masking the true nature of what exists beyond our borders." Captain Amy Foster, a confident woman with short blonde hair, raised her hand. She commanded the USS Pathfinder, one of the most advanced ships in the fleet. "Doctor, are you saying that there might be star systems out there that we just can't detect?" "Not just star systems, Captain. Possibly entire civilizations. The technology required to create this kind of masking effect is far beyond anything we have. Whoever built this boundary is incredibly advanced." The room erupted in nervous chatter. The idea that humanity might not be alone in the galaxy was both exciting and terrifying. Admiral Kane raised her hand for silence. "Dr. Sullivan has been working on a solution," she announced. "Doctor, tell them about your probe project." Kevin stood up again, looking excited despite the serious situation. "We've developed a new type of probe that might be able to penetrate the boundary. Instead of trying to see through the masking effect, these probes are designed to physically cross the barrier and send back data from the other side." Tony Garcia, the chief engineer from the Pathfinder, leaned forward in his seat. He was a stocky man with calloused hands and a practical mind. "What kind of data are we talking about, Doc?" "Everything. Star positions, radio signals, evidence of technology, signs of life. If there's anything out there, these probes should be able to detect it." Admiral Kane nodded. "Captain Foster, I'm assigning your ship to lead the first probe mission. You'll take the Pathfinder to the boundary and deploy Dr. Sullivan's experimental probes. Your communications officer, Rachel Morris, will be responsible for maintaining contact with the probes once they cross over." Amy felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. Rachel was young but skilled, with curly red hair and a talent for handling complex communication systems. The mission would be dangerous, but it might finally give humanity answers about what lay beyond their borders. 3 weeks later, the Pathfinder approached the boundary. The crew was tense as they watched their instruments carefully. As they got closer, their long-range sensors began to malfunction just as other ships had reported. "Captain," Tony reported from the engineering station, "our sensors are starting to fail. Whatever's causing this effect, it's stronger than we thought." Amy nodded. "Dr. Sullivan, are your probes ready?" Kevin was hunched over his equipment, making final adjustments. "Ready, Captain?" "These probes are designed to operate independently once they cross the boundary. They'll collect data for 72 hours, then return to our position." "Rachel, what's the status of our communication systems?" Rachel looked up from her console, her face pale. "We're losing long-range communications, Captain. Once those probes cross over, we might not be able to contact them until they come back." "Launch the probes," Amy ordered. The Pathfinder released 6 small probes toward the boundary. The crew watched on their screens as the probes approached the invisible line where their sensors stopped working. One by one, the probes disappeared from their instruments. "Now we wait," Kevin said quietly. The next 72 hours were the longest of Amy's career. The crew tried to stay busy, but everyone was thinking about what the probes might find. Were they about to discover that humanity had neighbors in the galaxy? Were those neighbors friendly or hostile? On the 3rd day, Rachel suddenly straightened at her console. "Captain, I'm detecting something. The probes are coming back." The bridge fell silent as the first probe reappeared on their sensors, then the second, then the third. Only 4 of the 6 probes returned, but they were transmitting massive amounts of data. Kevin worked frantically at his computer, downloading the information. As the data streamed across his screen, his expression changed from excitement to amazement to shock. "Captain," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "you need to see this." Amy looked at the screen and felt her heart stop. The probes had found star systems, planets, and something else. Radio signals, massive structures in space. Evidence of technology that made human achievements look primitive. "My God," Rachel breathed, staring at the data. "There are thousands of them. Entire civilizations." The truth hit Amy like a physical blow. Humanity wasn't alone in the galaxy. They never had been. They had been deliberately isolated, kept in the dark about a universe teeming with intelligent life. "Get Admiral Kane on the line," Amy ordered. "Priority transmission. Tell her we found something that's going to change everything." As the Pathfinder turned toward home, carrying the most important discovery in human history, Amy couldn't shake one terrifying question. If there were thousands of advanced civilizations out there, why had they been keeping humanity isolated? Were they protecting humanity from something dangerous, or were they protecting the galaxy from humanity? Dr. Helen Brooks stared at the alien communications data spread across her laboratory screens. As the fleet's leading expert on alien biology and culture, she had been given the impossible task of making sense of the signals the probes had intercepted. What she had discovered made her hands shake as she worked. The communications weren't random. They were organized, systematic, and they all seemed to be talking about the same thing: Earth and humanity. For the past 3 days, Helen had been translating fragments of alien languages, and the picture that emerged was terrifying. "They've been watching us," she whispered to herself, then called Colonel Steve Mitchell on her communication device. "Steve, you need to come to my lab right now." "Bring your security clearance codes?" Colonel Mitchell arrived 15 minutes later. He was a serious man in his 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. As head of military intelligence, he had seen classified information from across human space, but nothing had prepared him for what Helen was about to show him. "Helen, what's so urgent?" he asked, settling into a chair beside her workstation. "Steve, these alien communications aren't just random chatter. They're surveillance reports. Someone has been monitoring every major event in human history for thousands of years." Helen pulled up a series of translated messages on her screen. "Look at this one from 50 years ago. It's describing the Luna colony disaster in perfect detail, including information that was classified by our own government." Steve leaned forward, reading the translation. "This is impossible. How could aliens know about classified military operations?" "Because They were there, Steve. They've been watching us the whole time. Helen switched to another screen showing a timeline of alien reports. I found references to World War II, the first moon landing, the Mars terraforming project, even the rebellion on Titan Station last year. Every major event in human history has been recorded and studied. Steve felt cold dread settling in his stomach. Who are these watchers? The communications call them the Keepers or the Watchers. Based on the language patterns, they're an ancient species that seems to serve as some kind of galactic police force. They've been assigned to monitor humanity's development and report back to something called the Council of Worlds. Helen pulled up another set of files. But here's the really scary part. They haven't just been watching us. They've been interfering. What do you mean? Remember the asteroid that almost hit Earth in 2157? The one that mysteriously changed course at the last minute? According to these reports, the Watchers deflected it. The plague that wiped out the colony on Kepler 442b? They released a cure into the atmosphere. The peace treaty that ended the colonial wars? They manipulated the negotiators' minds to make them more reasonable. Steve stood up abruptly, pacing across the small laboratory. You're telling me that aliens have been secretly controlling human history? Not controlling, Helen corrected. Guiding. They've been steering our development, preventing us from destroying ourselves while we grew up as a species. But Steve, that's not the worst part. She pulled up a new set of communications, these ones much more recent. 3 days ago, right? After our probes crossed the boundary, the alien chatter increased dramatically. They're not just talking about us anymore. They're arguing about us. Arguing how? Some of the civilizations out there think humanity should be released from isolation. They believe we've reached a level of development where we can be trusted with contact, but others ... Helen's voice trailed off. Others what? Others think we're still too dangerous. They want to keep us contained permanently, or worse, they want to eliminate us entirely before we become a threat to galactic civilization. Commander Julie Harper burst into the laboratory without knocking. She was the fleet's specialist in deep space communications, a thin woman with intense green eyes and prematurely gray hair from years of stress. Dr. Brooks, Colonel Mitchell, we have a problem, a big one. What is it, Commander? Steve asked. I've been monitoring the alien communications frequencies since we got back from the boundary. The chatter has increased by over 300% in the last 24 hours. Something big is happening out there? Julie activated a portable holographic display showing signal patterns from across the galaxy. These aren't just random conversations anymore. This is organized military communication. Fleet movements, tactical discussions, strategic planning. The galaxy is mobilizing. Helen felt her heart racing. Mobilizing for what? I'm not sure, but I've detected at least 6 different factions arguing about something called the human. Question. Some want to maintain the isolation. Others want to make contact. And there's a third group that keeps using terms our translation computers render as final solution and permanent containment. Steve's military training kicked in. Commander, do we have any indication of their capabilities? Based on the communication patterns, we're looking at civilizations that have been spacefaring for thousands of years. Their technology is so advanced that our best weapons would be like throwing rocks at a battleship. If they decide to act against us, there's nothing we can do to stop them. Helen looked at the data streaming across her screens. There's something else. The isolation system that's been hiding us from the galaxy is starting to fail. The Watchers built it to last, but it was never meant to be permanent. Other civilizations are starting to detect us naturally. How long do we have? Steve asked. Based on the signal degradation patterns, maybe 6 months before the isolation completely breaks down. After that, every advanced civilization in the galaxy will be able to see Earth and our colonies. Julie nodded grimly. And according to the communications I've intercepted, not all of them are happy about having hidden neighbors. Some of these civilizations view our enforced isolation as a violation of galactic law. They think the Watchers had no right to hide us. The 3 humans stood in silence. absorbing the magnitude of what they had discovered. Humanity had never been alone in the galaxy. They had been protected and guided by ancient aliens who had been debating their fate for millennia. But now that protection was crumbling, and humanity was about to be exposed to a galaxy full of civilizations that might see them as a threat. "We need to contact Admiral Kane immediately," Steve said. "This information goes straight to Earth Command. Humanity needs to know what's coming." As they prepared to send their report, Helen couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. The galaxy was awakening to humanity's existence, and the decision about their future was about to be taken out of the Watchers' hands. Whether humanity would be welcomed into galactic civilization or eliminated as a threat would soon be decided by forces beyond their control. Ambassador Nathan Price walked through the corridors of the space station orbiting Earth, but he was not like other humans. He moved with a strange grace, his eyes holding knowledge that seemed far too old for his 30-year-old face. Most people who met him felt uncomfortable, sensing something different about him without knowing what it was. Nathan had been taken from Earth when he was 5 years old, though no human records showed he had ever existed. The Watchers had chosen him to be their bridge between humanity and the galaxy. They had raised him, taught him, and prepared him for this moment when the two worlds would finally meet. He entered the main conference room where Admiral Kane and the top leaders of Human Space Command were waiting. Dr. Sandra Lee, Earth's best diplomat, sat at the table with a tablet full of questions. She was a calm woman with silver hair and intelligent eyes, chosen to handle first contact because of her skill in negotiation. "Ladies and gentlemen," Nathan began, his voice carrying an accent that no human could place, "I am here to speak for the Watchers. My name is Nathan Price, and I am human, though I have not lived among you for 25 years. Admiral Kane leaned forward. "Mr. Price, we have many questions. First, why have your people been hiding us from the galaxy?" Nathan smiled sadly. "Because the galaxy is not a safe place for young civilizations. 3 million years ago, the Watchers were like you. Young, aggressive, expanding rapidly across the stars. We nearly destroyed ourselves and took several other species with us. The galaxy decided that young civilizations needed to be protected from themselves and from others." Dr. Lee made notes on her tablet. "So you're saying we've been in some kind of cosmic quarantine?" "Yes, but not as punishment, as protection. The galaxy operates under what we call the Emergence Protocol. Young civilizations are isolated until they prove they can control their violent instincts. Some species take thousands of years to mature. Others never do." General Paul Davis, a large man with a deep voice and suspicious eyes, spoke up. "And who decides when we're ready? You?" Nathan shook his head. "Not just us. The Council of Worlds makes these decisions. Representatives from 47 civilizations study each emerging species and vote on their readiness. For humanity, the vote has been close for centuries." "What do you mean, close?" Dr. Lee asked. "Some council members believe humans have shown remarkable progress. Your wars have become less frequent, your cooperation has increased, and your technology has advanced, without destroying your planet. But others point to your history of violence and your tendency to expand aggressively." Admiral Kane stood up. "What exactly are options here?" Nathan's expression grew serious. "The Council is meeting in 1 week to decide humanity's fate. There are 3 possibilities. First, gradual integration into galactic society with strict supervision. You would be allowed to contact other civilizations, but your expansion would be limited and monitored." "That doesn't sound like freedom," General Davis said. "The second option is continued isolation. The boundary around your space would be reinforced, and you would remain hidden from the galaxy indefinitely. You would be safe, but you would never know what lies beyond your borders." "And the third option?" Dr. Lee asked, though her voice suggested she already knew the answer. "Elimination. Some council members believe that humanity is too dangerous to be allowed to mature. They want to prevent you from becoming a threat to galactic civilization." The room fell silent. The human leaders exchanged worried glances. The idea that advanced aliens might destroy humanity to protect themselves was terrifying. Dr. Karen White, a young scientist who had been studying the alien communications, raised her hand. Mr. Price, is there anything we can do to influence this decision? Nathan nodded. The Watchers have proposed a fourth option, but it's dangerous. We believe humanity has a unique quality that could be valuable to the galaxy. Most civilizations achieve peace through conformity. They eliminate conflict by making everyone think the same way. But humans have maintained their diversity while learning to cooperate. What does that mean for us? Admiral Kane asked. It means you might be able to solve problems that other civilizations cannot. Your ability to think differently, to innovate under pressure, to adapt quickly to new situations, these are rare qualities in the galaxy. Dr. White leaned forward excitedly. Are you saying we could prove our value by helping solve galactic problems? Yes, but the test would be dangerous. There is a threat approaching the galaxy from outside, something that has defeated several civilizations in other regions of space. The rigid thinking of most galactic species has made them unable to develop effective defenses. General Davis frowned. You want us to fight your battles for you? Not fight, think, find solutions that we cannot see. Humanity's greatest strength is not your weapons or your technology. It's your ability to find new ways to approach old problems. Dr. Lee put down her tablet. What kind of threat are we talking about? Nathan hesitated. We call them the Devourers. They consume entire star systems, converting matter into energy for their expansion. They're not alive as we understand life, but they're intelligent and hostile. They've been moving through the galaxy for 10,000 years, and they're getting closer to this region of space. How much time do we have? Admiral Kane asked. 2 years, maybe 3. The Council needs to decide about humanity soon because if you're going to help defend the galaxy, you need time to prepare. The human leaders sat in stunned silence. They had hoped for contact with alien civilizations, but they had never imagined being asked to help defend the galaxy against an ancient threat. Mr. Price, Dr. Lee said finally, if we choose to help, what would happen to the restrictions on our expansion? Nathan smiled for the first time since entering the room. If humanity helps save the galaxy, you would be granted full membership in the Council of Worlds. No restrictions, no supervision. You would be free to explore the stars as equals among the galactic civilizations. General Davis looked around the table at his colleagues. And if we refuse? Then the Council will choose one of the other 3 options? And given the approaching threat, I suspect they will choose elimination rather than risk leaving a potentially dangerous species behind enemy lines. The meeting ended with more questions than answers, but one thing was clear: humanity's future depended on a choice that would determine not just their own fate, but the fate of the entire galaxy. The containment system around Earth began failing 6 months earlier than expected. Captain Bobby Turner watched from the bridge of the defense ship Liberty as alien vessels appeared at the edges of human space. They were not friendly visitors. These were ships from civilizations that had voted to eliminate humanity before they could become a threat. Captain, we're detecting massive energy signatures, reported Lieutenant Dan Cooper from the sensor station. These ships are more advanced than anything we've ever seen. Our weapons won't even scratch them. Bobby was a veteran of the colonial wars, a tough man who had spent his life fighting for human survival. But he had never faced an enemy like this. How many ships are we looking at? 47 vessels, sir. Each one is larger than our biggest battleship. The alien fleet had come from the Zephyrian Empire, a civilization that believed young species should be eliminated before they could spread violence across the galaxy. Their ships moved with deadly precision, surrounding the human defense fleet like hunters circling prey. On Earth, Dr. Michelle Green worked frantically in her laboratory. She had been studying the data about the approaching Devourers, trying to understand how they operated. Michelle was brilliant but impatient, with curly black hair and eyes that rarely stopped moving as her mind raced through possibilities. There has to be something we're missing, she muttered, scrolling through alien reports about previous Devourer attacks. Every civilization that fought them used the same tactics. Energy weapons, force fields, defensive formations. But the Devourers adapted to everything. Her assistant, Dr. Ben Clark, looked up from his computer. Maybe that's the problem. Everyone is fighting them the same way. Michelle stopped scrolling. What do you mean? You said it yourself? The galaxy civilizations all think alike. They achieve peace through conformity. So when they face a threat, they all respond the same way. But what if the Devourers have evolved specifically to counter that kind of thinking? Michelle's eyes widened. Ben, you might be onto something. What if the reason the Devourers keep winning is because they've learned to predict how advanced civilizations will respond? Meanwhile, in space near the boundary, the Watcher's ship approached the human defense fleet. Ambassador Nathan Price stood on the bridge alongside Commander Alice Morgan, the human officer who had been chosen to lead the combined defense. Alice was young for such responsibility, but she had shown an unusual ability to think creatively under pressure. Commander Morgan, Nathan said, the Zephyrian ships are preparing to attack. They believe humanity is too dangerous to be allowed to survive. Alice studied the tactical display. The alien ships were arranged in a perfect formation, each one positioned to maximize their firepower while protecting their neighbors. It was beautiful and deadly, the product of thousands of years of military evolution. Nathan, do these Zephyrians always fight the same way? Yes, their tactics are based on mathematical perfection. They have not changed their battle strategies in over 1,000 years because they believe they have achieved the optimal approach to warfare. Alice smiled grimly. Then they're about to learn why humans are different. Instead of forming a defensive line to meet the alien attack, Alice ordered the human ships to scatter in apparently random directions. The Zephyrians paused, confused by the chaotic human response. Their computers had calculated every possible human tactic except the one Alice was using, complete unpredictability. All ships, Alice broadcast, ignore their formation. Attack. Whatever target looks interesting, no coordination, no plan. Just make it up as you go. The human fleet dove into battle like a swarm of angry bees. Each ship captain made their own decisions, creating a chaotic pattern that the Zephyrian computers couldn't predict or counter. The alien ships, designed for precise mathematical warfare, struggled to adapt to human randomness, but the real battle was happening in Dr. Green's laboratory. She had discovered something incredible in the Devourer data. The creatures didn't just consume matter and energy. They consumed information, learning from every civilization they destroyed. That's how they've stayed ahead, she told Nathan over the communication system. They absorb the knowledge of every species they defeat, making them stronger and smarter. But they've only absorbed the knowledge of civilizations that think alike. What are you suggesting? Nathan asked. I'm suggesting we give them something they've never tasted before. Human creativity, human chaos, human unpredictability. 3 days later, the Devourers arrived at the edge of the galaxy. They were massive, dark shapes that seemed to bend space around them. Every civilization in the galaxy had prepared for this moment, but their preparations were based on conventional thinking. Alice found herself commanding not just human ships, but vessels from dozens of alien civilizations. The other species had initially resisted taking orders from such a young civilization, but the success against the Zephyrians had changed their minds. All ships, Alice broadcast, forget everything you know about tactics. We're going to hit them with something they've never seen before. The combined fleet attacked the Devourers using strategies that made no sense to anyone except humans. Ships from ancient civilizations found themselves flying in formations that violated every rule of space combat, but somehow worked. Dr. Green had developed a new type of weapon based on human music and art. Instead of trying to destroy the Devourers with energy, they fed them information that was pure chaos. Human creativity, human emotion, human irrationality, the Devourers, which had consumed the ordered knowledge of 1,000 civilizations, couldn't process the beautiful madness of human thought. They began to break apart. their perfect systems overloaded by the impossible complexity of human creativity. As the last Devourer ship dissolved into space dust, Alice received the message from the Council of Worlds. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would be granted full membership in galactic civilization, with no restrictions and no supervision, but more importantly, the galaxy had learned something new. Diversity wasn't just valuable, it was essential. The conformity that had brought peace to the galaxy had also made it vulnerable. Humanity's chaotic creativity had saved them all. Nathan stood beside Alice as they watched the boundary around Earth finally disappear. The maps that had gone dark at humanity's borders now showed star systems stretching across the galaxy, all open to human exploration. "Welcome to the galaxy," Nathan said with a smile. Alice looked out at the infinite stars and smiled back. "We're going to have some fun out there." The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had stepped onto the cosmic stage not as conquerors or students, but as the guardians of diversity itself. And the universe was vast enough for all of them.